The first lawsuit arrived on a Wednesday morning. I signed for it myself because my receptionist was at lunch. The return address belonged to a law firm in Charleston, South Carolina. Inside was a single document. Notice of ownership claimed the claimant wasn't a stranger. It was my older sister, the same sister whose funeral I had attended 21 years earlier. I read the first page twice, then a third time. My name is Victoria Hale. I'm 39 years old and I specialize in forensic accounting. My entire career has been built on exposing financial fraud, fake companies, hidden money, and forged signatures. Numbers don't scare me because numbers always leave fingerprints. People erase records. Money never does. 21 years ago, my parents buried an empty coffin after a highway bridge collapsed during a hurricane. Police said my sister Rebecca had been swept into the river. Her body was never recovered. DNA confirmed nothing. Only her abandoned car was found. Eventually, everyone accepted the same sentence. She's gone. Everyone, except me. For years, I kept one unopened birthday card inside my desk. Every year, I wrote her name on a new envelope. Every year, I never mailed it. Not because I believed she was alive, because I couldn't accept she was gone. Life moved forward anyway. I built my career, bought a brownstone in Boston, hired 12 employees, stopped talking about Rebecca because everyone else already had. Then, on an ordinary Wednesday morning, a lawyer informed me that my dead sister was demanding half of our grandfather's estate. The claim included something impossible: a recent driver's license, a recent signature, a recent photograph, taken only 6 weeks earlier. I stared at the picture, older, a little thinner, different hairstyle, but the same green eyes, the same scar above her right eyebrow from falling off Grandpa's dock when she was 11. Nobody could fake that. At the bottom of the claim was one handwritten sentence: "Tell Victoria to stop looking at old records and start looking at old lies." That sentence changed everything, because nobody, absolutely nobody, knew I had secretly reopened Rebecca's death file 3 months earlier. I didn't answer the lawsuit, not immediately. Most attorneys react within hours. Forensic accountants don't. We verify first. By noon, I had locked my office door, pulled every file connected to my sister's disappearance from storage, and spread 21 years of paperwork across my conference table. Police reports, insurance records, autopsy findings, bridge inspection documents. Every page told the same story. Rebecca Hale disappeared during Hurricane Isabel. Vehicle recovered, body never located, case closed. It looked complete. Too complete. That bothered me. The signature on the ownership claim bothered me even more. I scanned it into my computer beside Rebecca's last known signature from a college loan application dated 6 months before she disappeared. They weren't identical. They had evolved. Exactly the way a real person's handwriting changes over 20 years. A professional forgery usually copies the past. The signature had grown older. Either someone extraordinary created it, or Rebecca really signed those papers. At 3:15, my assistant knocked softly. "Victoria, there's someone downstairs asking for you." "Another lawyer?" She shook her head. "No. He says he worked for your grandfather." 5 minutes later, I stepped into the lobby. An elderly groundskeeper stood beside the window holding a faded leather toolbox. His name was Harold Pierce. He had maintained my grandfather's coastal estate for almost 30 years. "I heard about the lawsuit," he said quietly. "I thought you should have this before Richard finds it." He opened the toolbox. Hidden beneath rusted gardening tools lay a sealed metal cash box. The lock had already been cut. Inside, a roll of undeveloped camera film, an old motel room key, and a notebook wrapped carefully in oilcloth. The first page contained only one sentence written in my grandfather's handwriting: "If Rebecca returns, don't trust anyone who already knew she was alive." I felt the room become strangely quiet. What does that mean? Harold looked toward the street instead of answering. Your grandfather believed someone in your family had been lying since the night Rebecca disappeared. My family? He nodded slowly. He spent the last 6 years of his life trying to prove it. Did he? Harold hesitated. I think he got close. Too close. Before I could ask another question, a black SUV stopped across the street. Its engine remained running. 2 people inside, watching us. Harold noticed it immediately. His face lost all color. They found me. Who? He grabbed my arm. Victoria, whatever you do, don't let your uncle get that notebook. Then he turned and hurried out the back exit. By the time I reached the sidewalk, Harold Pierce was gone. So was the SUV. Only one thing remained: the motel key lying forgotten inside the metal box. Attached to it was a faded plastic tag. Room 312, Harbor Crest Motel. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove straight to Harbor Crest Motel. The place sat just outside Charleston near an old stretch of highway that most tourists never used anymore. The neon sign buzzed weakly. Half the letters were burned out. The parking lot was almost empty. It looked like the kind of motel people forgot existed. Room 312 was on the second floor. The door had been painted over so many times that the numbers were barely visible. I stood there holding the faded key. Part of me expected it not to work. The lock turned on the first try. The room smelled of dust. Nobody had stayed there for years. The furniture was still covered with white sheets. A small television sat in the corner. Everything looked abandoned, except one chair. Someone had moved it recently. The carpet beneath it was cleaner than the rest of the room. I slid the chair aside. A loose floor tile shifted beneath my foot. My heartbeat quickened. I knelt down and carefully lifted the tile. Hidden underneath was a waterproof document tube. Inside were 3 items: a USB flash drive, a folded newspaper from 21 years earlier, and an envelope addressed to me, Victoria. If you're reading this, someone finally found room 312. There was no signature. I unfolded the newspaper. The front page headline wasn't about the bridge collapse. It was about my grandfather. Local businessman survives private plane crash. The article said the crash happened just 48 hours before Rebecca disappeared. I'd never heard that story before. Not once. The envelope contained only one photograph. It showed my grandfather, my Uncle Richard, and Rebecca standing together outside a warehouse. The picture had been taken 3 days after the bridge supposedly swept Rebecca away. I stopped breathing. That was impossible. Unless the official timeline had been fabricated. I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. Only one video file appeared. No title, no date. I pressed play. The footage came from an old security camera. The timestamp read, September 18th, 2003. 1 day after Rebecca's reported death. The camera overlooked the entrance to the same warehouse shown in the photograph. At first, nothing happened. Then a black SUV pulled into the parking lot. 3 people stepped out. My grandfather, my Uncle Richard, and Rebecca. Alive. She wasn't injured. She wasn't frightened. She was arguing. Even without sound, I could tell she was furious. She pointed toward Richard. Richard stepped closer. My grandfather tried separating them, then the recording suddenly cut to black. Someone had deliberately edited the rest. Before I could replay it, the motel room lights went out. Complete darkness. A loud crash echoed from the hallway, then slow footsteps stopped outside. Room 312, whoever was standing there, knew I had found the video. I didn't move. The footsteps stopped directly outside room 312. Then, 3 slow knocks. Not loud, not angry, almost patient. I quietly closed my laptop, slipped the USB drive into my pocket, and reached for the heavy wooden chair beside the bed. Another knock, then a man's voice. Victoria. It was Uncle Richard. We both know you're in there. I just want to talk. For 21 years, he had lied without raising his voice. I wasn't about to believe him now. Instead, I quietly opened the motel room window. Room 312 overlooked the back parking lot, only 1 story down. I climbed onto the ledge, dropped to the grass below, and disappeared behind a row of overgrown bushes, just as I heard the motel room door splinter open. Richard hadn't come alone. 2 men entered behind him. They tore the room apart. Mattresses, drawers, ceiling tiles. They weren't looking for me. They were looking for the USB drive. That told me everything I needed to know. I drove straight to Detective Laura Simmons at the Charleston Financial Crimes Unit. Not local police, financial crimes, because this story had never been about a missing person. It had always been about money. Laura watched the warehouse video 3 times, then she looked at me. The ending was deleted. I know. She smiled slightly. No. It wasn't. She connected the USB drive to a forensic recovery system. Within minutes, a second hidden video appeared. Someone had erased it years earlier, but never permanently. The recovered footage began exactly where the first recording ended. Rebecca was shouting at Richard. Even without perfect audio, one sentence was unmistakable. "You stole Grandpa's company." Richard grabbed her arm. Grandpa stepped between them. Then Grandpa handed Rebecca a thick envelope. She ran toward another waiting vehicle. Richard chased her. The recording stopped only after Rebecca's car disappeared through the warehouse gate. She hadn't died. She escaped. Detective Simmons immediately reopened the original case. Bank records, insurance files, corporate ownership documents. Everything was reviewed again. Within 2 weeks, investigators uncovered the real reason Rebecca disappeared. Grandpa had discovered Richard had been stealing millions from the family shipping business through fake vendors and shell companies. Rebecca found the evidence first. The bridge accident had never happened. Richard paid someone to abandon Rebecca's empty car near the collapsed bridge after a hurricane. Everyone assumed she had died. Rebecca accepted a new identity arranged by federal investigators because she was the government's key witness. The case remained sealed for 21 years, while prosecutors built financial fraud charges against everyone involved, including Richard, the lawsuit he filed against me. It was never about the estate. He believed Grandpa had hidden the remaining evidence before his death. He thought Rebecca had secretly returned to claim it. He panicked. He exposed himself. 3 months later, Richard stood in federal court wearing handcuffs instead of a business suit. He accepted a plea agreement that included fraud, conspiracy, tax evasion, and obstruction of justice. His company collapsed before the trial even ended. The family estate stayed exactly where Grandpa intended. One quiet afternoon, 6 months later, someone knocked on my front door. No lawyers, no detectives. Just a woman with short gray hair and familiar green eyes. Neither of us spoke. We didn't have to. Rebecca smiled first. I promised Grandpa I'd come back after it was finally over. I stepped forward and hugged the sister I'd mourned for 21 years. Some stories don't end with revenge. Some end with truth finally arriving home. The estate remained in our family. Grandpa's name was cleared. Richard lost everything he spent 2 decades trying to steal. As for Rebecca, she didn't want the money. She only wanted her real name back. Sometimes justice isn't winning a lawsuit. Sometimes justice is getting your family back. Thank you for staying with me until the end of my story. Take care of yourself. Take care of the people who earn your trust, and I'll see you in the next story.